Hi, everyone. Welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. I'm your host, Miriam Shaw. It's such an honor to have you here today. Thank you for joining me. You are going to want to buckle up because we have an incredible guest today who has been really relieved once President-elect Trump won because he is a J6 survivor. We welcome Derrick Evans to the show. He was actually in federal prison for 3 months and even solitary confinement. And he joins us today to talk about what this means to him having President-elect Trump win in such a fashion. And what does that mean, not just for him, he's out of prison, but what it means to those J6ers who are in prison now, and maybe even the ones who haven't been notified and the FBI is just waiting to come after them. So buckle up. This is a show you do not want to miss. Derrick Evans, welcome to the Moms on a Mission podcast. It's such an honor to have you here today.
Oh, the honor is mine. Thank you guys for having me. I really appreciate it.
So as we were talking about before the show started, I've never interviewed a former prisoner before, let alone a J6er. And it's just such an honor to have you here because it is a war of narratives that we're operating under. I think everybody knows that now since the election for sure. But I was wondering, as we were talking about before the show, we talked about your life, what it was like. It feels like J6 is the determining timeline, like what your life was before J6 and what it was like after. Talk to us a little bit about who you are and what life was like for Derrick Evans before January 6th.
Yeah, well, look, I'm a former school teacher. I dropped out of that to focus full time on real estate. So I've been investing in real estate, flipping homes, owning real property, that stuff. I'm a husband. I'm a father. And right before January 6th in 2020, I actually ran for the state house here in West Virginia. I won my race in a landslide victory. I was the first Republican to win my district in over 98 years. And so I went from making history in November and to making history in January when I went and stood with the American people on January 6th to peacefully and patriotically protest the stolen election. I'm the only elected legislator in the entire country who had the courage to go do that and get swept up in all of this and get thrown in prison and solitary confinement.
Solitary confinement. Okay, well, we're going to go back to that in just a minute. So that's news to me, actually. I can't even imagine what that was like for you. So that day on January 6th, the goal, it seems like to me, was everybody was going to go listen to President Trump. And then he said for everybody to march peacefully to the Capitol. So you were there listening to Trump, right? You were listening to what he said, and then you followed and went with the crowd to stand and protest. So was that the goal, was to wave flags and stand there? Was that what everybody was planning on doing?
Well, see, most the media has switched this narrative so much that they kept calling it "Stop the Steal" and everything. When you go back and really look, the entire thing was called March to Save America. It had been planned for weeks and months that when President Trump got finished speaking, everyone was marching to the Capitol. And what people don't realize is there were permits granted to other speakers and protesters around the Capitol building. So there were scheduled speakers who had permits to be there that day. And so that was the plan all along. So when everybody took those words of President Trump in the media and twisted that and took it out of context, he said, hey, we're getting ready to march peacefully and patriotically to the Capitol, because that had been the plan for weeks and weeks and weeks leading up to this. And like I said, there were scheduled speakers like Brandon Straka from Walkaway Foundation was a scheduled speaker. Dr. Simone Gold with America's Frontline Doctors was a scheduled. I mean, there was a lot of these scheduled speakers around the Capitol. So that's why everybody was originally going there, was to continue the peaceful protest at the Capitol and listen to these other speakers.
Right. And so he finishes speaking and people start marching. When do you feel like things started going awry? I know we saw things in the news about this gentleman, Ray Epps, which we don't even know, he was on the list and he came off the FBI's most wanted list. Like, we don't even know what's happening to him. And then, of course, this war of narratives, we see the radical left mainstream media saying, this is a conspiracy theory to even look into him and to think that he played a part in this. I mean, when you went down there, when did things start going awry, Derrick?
Well, that's what's crazy for me. So when people were thinking about January 6th, if you wasn't there, everything you're seeing on the news was on the west side of the building and really centrally located on the west tunnel entrance. I was on the east side of the building, so I didn't see any violence. I didn't see any destruction. I mean, I didn't see any of those things. I walked through it's all on video. I walked through an open set of doors. I thanked the police officer for his service. He gives me a friendly fist bump, inviting me into the building. I said, God bless you, sir. I spent less than 10 minutes inside the public rotunda area, walked back out. So honestly, for me, I didn't realize what had really taken place until after I completely left DC and was on the way home, seeing some videos from the other side of the building. Still didn't really fully grasp what was going on, to be honest with you, until they arrested me. And on January 8th, I was one of the first people arrested. And even then, it still didn't fully hit me as to what was going on, because I was so naive. I still thought they must think I was with this other group of people, and maybe I was involved in the violence and destruction or something. When they see the evidence and see that I thanked a police officer and he gave me a fist bump, like they're going to throw this out. Like I really wasn't. I mean, I was scared. Don't get me wrong, and the whole trauma of being raided was a other thing. But in terms of looking long term, I thought, a judge is going to look at this and they're going to look at the evidence and they're going to realize that they got the wrong person, sort of thing. And the longer this went, the more scary it got, and not just from a standpoint of facing 24 years in prison, but more scary from the standpoint it became very evident that they didn't care about any of the evidence. They didn't care about the truth. All they cared about was persecuting President Trump supporters. And that's when it became very scary to me.
Wow. Talk to us about what that was like. I mean, we see Marjorie Taylor Greene, getting swatted all these times, and we see, the warfare and the lawfare, just like we talked about beforehand, the punishment is in the process of it all. What was that like for you when they came to arrest you?
Well, it was traumatic for my family, especially. So I have 4 children. At the time, my oldest was 5 years old. They told me that they watched my wife leave. They knew I was home alone with my children. And let me back up. I got an attorney on January 7th. So I was like all over national media on January 6th and January 7th. And so I reached out to a local attorney here who I retained, and he reached out to the FBI and said, "Hey, I'm representing this guy. If you guys want him for some reason, let him know. He'll come in and talk to you guys. Like, he's got a family, he's an elected official, respected member of the community. Like, he's not a threat to anyone." They said, okay. So I wasn't expecting to be raided. And then on January 8th, I was home alone with my children. Oldest is 5 years old, and they knew I was home alone with my children when they decided to raid my home. The media showed up, and then about 15 minutes later, I knew something was up when the media showed up. About 15 minutes later, the feds rolled in, about 15 agents deep. I grabbed my kids really quick. I put them in the back bedroom. I gave them a tablet and said, "Hey, play on your tablet while Daddy talks to his friends," because I didn't know what else to do, to be honest with you. I was trying to protect them not only physically, but I was trying to protect them mentally and emotionally as much as I possibly could. And then the hardest part of the whole thing, to kind of put it in perspective, was after I was cuffed and I was sitting in the back of the FBI cruiser, the SUV with the tinted windows. I could see out, but no one could really see in. I saw my little girl, the oldest. She was 5 years old, standing in our big window, looking out, just bawling her eyes out, wanting to know where Daddy was, what was going on, who these people were, because they were home. They were there by themselves. My grandparents hadn't made it there yet. My wife hadn't made it there yet. And to say that they traumatized my children would be an understatement. It took years for them to no longer be afraid of police officers, and that's sad.
That is so disgusting and vile. It just makes me so angry. I can't even imagine, as a parent, a mom, I would have been weeping. But I think, as a father, your God-given responsibility is to provide, but also to protect. And you probably felt so vulnerable in that moment, like, my kids are seeing this and I'm not there to protect them. I mean, how horrific. And we're hearing that story, Derrick, the very same thing you're talking about. President Trump says the same thing, that he said, "Hey, let us know regarding the documents. Let us know what you want." And, he had locked everything up. He'd done what they had asked him to do. And yet they still raided Mar-a-Lago in an unprecedented way. And I just, you see this, that it's not just you, it's not just President Trump, but you see this across the nation. And it's just so vile and so disgusting and so completely obvious to me that, they're waging this disgusting lawfare. And it's like we have this, banana republic and no longer this constitutional republic.
Yeah, that's exactly what it is. And people truly don't understand the importance of what we just did in terms of re-electing President Trump to save our country, because January 6th was really the test run, because after that, and they realized that they could get away with that. If you really look at it, they started going after the people who were protesting outside of abortion clinics, throwing them in prison, treating them the exact same way they treated us. And then parents who spoke out at school board meetings during COVID, all these different things. They're targeting every single conservative that they possibly could, once they realized that they could get away with it with the January 6th political prisoners. And so what they did to myself and so many others, that was their long-term plan, I believe, to really go after as many people as it took to complete their mission. And their mission was to put fear into the American people into accepting the tyranny that they were rolling out. Basically, sit down, shut up, and accept it, or look here, this is what's going to happen to you.
Yeah, and we even see with General Flynn, I mean, they literally tried to destroy him and his family. I mean, I was just thinking about his story last night, knowing that I was going to be speaking with you, and how attorneys were telling him not to speak with his son, and they didn't realize that these attorneys were compromised and that they shouldn't be trusting their own attorneys. I mean, it's so crazy that you really can't trust, and you really need to verify and vet everyone, even when they say that they're on your side. It's just so incredibly concerning to me. Derrick, talk to us about what that was like once you got there. You mentioned that they put you in solitary confinement. I mean, how on earth could they justify that?
Well, they used COVID as their excuse for doing that. So when I got there, they said, "Are you vaccinated?" I said, "No." They said, "Do you want to be vaccinated?" I said, "No." And they said, "Well, you got to go to solitary confinement." And I was like, "For what?" And they said, "For isolation." I said, "For how long?" And you got to remember, that's when they still were using those crazy colors. Well, we're on orange right now, so it's going to be this many days. But if it goes up, you're going to. So it was indefinite. We didn't know how long I was going to be there in the solitary confinement. Didn't know this was going to take place. So my wife drops me off at the prison and doesn't hear from me for 10 days because she doesn't know what, because you don't get a phone, you don't get anything while you're in there. I went 5 days without a book or anything, just sitting in there twiddling my thumbs. And here's the fascinating part about this. So if you are in prison and you break the rules and they throw you in the hole, you're in what's called 23-1 lockdown, meaning you're locked down 23 hours a day. You get out to get outside of your to an outside cage to feel sunlight and everything for 1 hour a day. Since I was in what they were calling isolation, I was locked down 24 hours a day. There was no getting out at all for any reason whatsoever. It was absolutely terrible, to say the least. And I'm at the end of the day, though, I'm lucky compared to so many others who went through that for months and months on end for simply supporting President Trump.
And that's been proven to be psychological torture. I mean, I have looked into this because my background's psychology, and I find it incredibly fascinating that these are absolutely torture techniques that are used against our national enemies.
100%. I mean, look, the first day you're kind of sitting in there and you're kind of decompressing and just going back over everything that just happened, like how you got here, like you can't even believe this is real. And then that's when reality starts really setting in. And the thing that really, to me, made it so difficult was, like I said, no book or anything like that. There's no way to tell the time. So you could lay down and take a nap. You don't know if you slept 20 minutes, 2 days, 2 hours. The no concept of time was very difficult. It's the slowest time could ever possibly move. I remember praying to God during that moment and saying, "Lord, I would love to just take whatever it is that's making time move so slow. I want to bottle this up and take it. When I get out here, I want to take my family on a vacation and unbottle that and make time move that slow." Because when you're on vacation with your family at the beach or something, time goes by so fast. And in there, I mean, I'm telling you, it's the slowest time could ever possibly move. Your mind is so powerful. It can go in a million different directions. I'm so fortunate and lucky to have been raised by a family who brought me up in the church, and I knew to lean on God during all this. And I'll share a fascinating moment with you guys. It was after I'd gotten out. I'd been out about a year or so. I was at Mar-a-Lago, and I was speaking to General Flynn and some others, and we're there and just talking about the weaponization of government. And then everybody kind of walked off. I'm standing there by the pool at Mar-a-Lago. It's for Dinesh D'Souza's premiere of his film that he had, and so I'm sitting there and I was just thinking, wow, I cannot believe that, a year ago I was in solitary confinement and now I'm at Mar-a-Lago. And God spoke to me so clearly. I mean, it was so amazing. He was like, "You were never alone. I was with you that entire time and I always had a plan for you." And so I share that story to remind people out there, this is so much bigger than January 6th. And I try to share with people, no matter what you're going through in life is very difficult and hard. And we always face challenges. No matter what you're going through in life, just know that God is with you and God does have a plan for you. Just stick it out and trust in him.
Wow. I mean, it reminds me of Joseph in the Bible too. His brothers tried to kill him and throw him in that pit, and then he's king, just like that dream, his own dream. And I'm sure that was so surreal. But one more question about solitary confinement. I mean, yes, you prayed. Yes, you called out to God, but I mean, you didn't even know when it was going to end, right? I mean, you could have been in there a year. You could have been in there 2 days. I mean, not knowing the time, the physical time, but also not knowing the time, how long you'd be in there. I feel like you were probably at a crossroads. Like, what you just feel like the Lord helped you not go crazy in there and not lose it?
I do. I just kept telling myself today's the last day. Just get through today. You're gonna get out tomorrow. And then on like a weekend or whatever, I'd say, hey, you're getting out on Monday, man. Don't worry about it. Like, what I mean? There's end inside it. So that's how I told myself every single day. I just took it one day at a time. Like, hey, to get through today, you're gonna get out here tomorrow and get out into to regular prison, which still sucks, but it's better than here. And so that's just what I kept telling myself. What was that? And like I said, your mind's very powerful. I started remembering childhood memories, good childhood memories I hadn't thought about in forever, maybe ever. I mean, I have memories of being literally around 2 years old, out in the garden with my grandparents. I don't even know where that memory came from, but and so in a weird way, I'm thankful for that experience, because I'll tell you another reason. It's made me a much better husband and a much better father. I have to remind myself sometimes, we live busy lives, we get busy doing things. And, there's a lot of times my kids will, hey, pick me up and wrestle with me or draw for, whatever it is. And, you want to say no, because not right now, I'm busy. And I sometimes have to take a step back and remind myself that when I was in solitary confinement, I didn't think about politics. I didn't think about, business. I didn't think about money. Only thing I thought about was getting back home to my family. And it's important for us to remind ourselves of those things. And so for me, I have a new perspective on just how precious this time is with my children and my wife. And so I think that I have a deeper understanding of that somebody my age probably wouldn't have.
Yeah, and the Bible talks about that in Romans 8:28, where it says all things work together for the good for those who love God and are called according to his purpose. And really what Satan intends to harm us and to stumble us or cause us to stumble and to slow us down, I mean, clearly God has used this as a stepping stone for you and cause you not only to be more appreciative of your family and make, good decisions, better decisions there, but also has elevated your platform to where you can share your story literally nationwide and worldwide. You have a podcast, right?
I do, yeah. So we got a show. Actually, we're going to be a couple of days a week right now here on Patriot TV and some other places, and I think we're going to be coming to 5 days a week over here. We're really excited about that. General Flynn's been awesome, and he's somebody I've looked up to for a really long time, especially throughout this political persecution journey that I've taken. He's somebody that I've really looked at and looked up to, because he never gave up and never gave in, and that was somebody to I guess try to emulate as you're going through this. And so it's been great. Like I said, I'm blessed. I'm able to travel all over the country, speaking at different events and sharing the truth about January 6th and weaponization of government. And one of the main questions I always get asked from people when I have the opportunity to do that is they ask, how do you have the courage to do this, knowing what you've already went through? And I tell them, like, look, we have a natural God-given right of free speech, and the Constitution was written to prevent the government from infringing on our natural God-given rights. And it's the most powerful, peaceful way we can redress our grievances. If we willingly give up our free speech out of fear, then we've already lost this battle to save our country. We owe it to ourselves. We owe it to our founding fathers, our ancestors, and we owe it to our children and future grandchildren to continue speaking the truth, speaking out against the tyranny we find ourselves living under today, so that way we can, hopefully change things for the future for our children and grandchildren.
Absolutely. And I love Ronald Reagan's quote where he talks about freedom isn't passed down through the bloodline. It's something that we have to, fight for and teach our children how to fight for, because, I think the longer that we are free and the longer that we don't have to be uncomfortable and fighting even fear within ourselves, speaking up. I mean, we just take this for granted, and it's almost like we become paralyzed because we're so comfortable, right? And we're not used to having to stand up. But I mean, when you look at the establishment of the United States, I mean, they had to stand up repeatedly as soon as it was founded. I mean, the British weren't going to be like, oh, okay, there you go. You can have your own country. I mean, they even, since the signing of the Declaration of Independence, they kept trying to get the United States back. And so this battle, it was being waged for years after we were established. And it's like, I think people don't understand. I mean, Reagan said that back in the 80s, which isn't a terribly long time ago. But now I think we're really seeing like, hey, I think that's why we saw such a phenomenal red wave for President Trump, because, folks are really seeing like this war is real. And you had the COVID tyranny, you had the J6 tyranny, and you're seeing all these complexes, whether it's the military industrial complex, pharmaceutical, even in corporate America, with the DEI and pushing all of this. I mean, it really is everywhere. And I think people are realizing no one really is safe at this point. If you don't stand up and speak up and go vote and vote for freedom, I mean, you'll lose it.
I would agree. And, I really think that the left overplayed their hand. We were, to your point, we were the frog in the water, and they just kept turning it up a little bit warmer and warmer and warmer. And we didn't realize how much of our freedoms we'd really given up. A lot of us did, but I mean, as a whole, as a country, people didn't realize that. And then they overplayed their hand with COVID, and look how many people had no clue. They just got a great awakening all at one time when they started seeing what was taking place in their school systems, and shutting everything down. And then, as you said, the political persecution that started running across this country. I think that the left overplayed their hand, and they tried to do too much too fast, and accidentally on their part woke too many people up, and people said, wait a second, we don't want this. And then the political persecution against President Trump. Then they literally tried to assassinate him multiple times. And I think that was really a big turning point in this last election, when people realized, okay, like President Trump really is somebody that the same people who hate me, they obviously hate him. And therefore, I want to see him get elected so we can send a message to the deep state. I really believe that there's a lot of people out there who voted on that main thing.
Absolutely. And I totally agree with you. I think, as they started, indicting him, and then, just the pressure and the egregious things that they did to him kept increasing to the point they're trying to murder him. And I think that was probably the final nail in the coffin for most people who might have been on the fence, to really wake up and say, oh, okay, they really are trying to destroy our country. And which I find this so interesting, because I listened in history class when I was young, but I've been learning now about communism and Marxism, and how, the Naked Communists that Skousen wrote. I mean, these, goals, these communist goals they have to take over America. I mean, these were entered into the congressional record January 10th, 1963. And these things that we're seeing now, this weaponization of the government, this pornography in schools, I mean, all the various things that we're seeing, dividing children from their parents and creating division there. Stoking grievances and this oppression versus the oppressed and the oppressor. I mean, all of these things, they said this way back in 1963. It was entered into the congressional record. And so now what we're seeing is the fruit of this labor. And it just makes so much more sense when you understand that this is a fight against communism and Marxism. I mean, really, let's be honest. Ephesians 6:12 says we don't battle against flesh and blood, but we get battle against principalities. And that's what it is: good versus evil, God versus Satan. But it's in the form of Marxism and communism.
100%. This is 100% good versus evil. There's no one with any common sense who could argue otherwise at this point. I mean, there's like transitioning or trying to transition children and sexually mutilate children. That is not a political position. That is an evil position. Same with murdering babies and everything else that's going on in this country. And the thing that people in America need to realize is, if this was happening in another country, what this government, especially the illegitimate Biden-Harris regime, if what they've been doing over the last 4 years, if they were doing that in another country, America would use that as an excuse to invade that country and try to implement some sort of regime change. But the difference is there's nobody to come save us in America. We are the last beacon of freedom and hope. There's nowhere to run to. I mean, even with all the problems we had going on, people are coming to our country still. And to be honest with you, if the Biden-Harris regime would have won, or Harris would have won here at this last election, I think they would have built the wall. They would have built the wall to keep Americans from fleeing, because if that's kind of the punishment that they were going to bring forth to all of us.
Yeah, I wouldn't have been surprised by that either. I wanted to ask you about this article that just came out. NBC, the news reported on November 9th that the Justice Department plans to focus on the, quote, most egregious January 6 cases until Trump is inaugurated. And they point blank said that, at least they'll have a record even if Trump tries to pardon them. I mean, they literally said that in the actual news portion of this. And I just wanted to get your take on that, Derrick.
Well, first of all, this article was written by Ryan Riley of NBC News. He's a total scumbag. He has really just grifted and self-enriched himself over the last 4 years of just spreading false information and misleading information about January 6th in general, as well as January 6th individuals. Hopefully he can go get him a job at McDonald's under the manager Kamala Harris after Trump pardons all of us and the truth comes out about January 6th. He can no longer grift on that. But, it's really sad what they're planning to do here. They're planning to as you said, they know Trump's going to get them a pardon, but they want to leave that lasting impression of the raid and the trauma and the emotional turmoil that comes with that on these people, if at all possible. And, I'm not going to lie, it was one of the things I've been worried about over the last couple of years, speaking out against the Biden-Harris regime and telling the truth about January 6th. Yes, I've already served my time, but there's so many other ways that they can continue to harass people in this country that they oppose. I mean, they hired 87,000 armed IRS agents for a reason. And so it's something I've been a little bit nervous about as well. And I think that this article and this announcement by the DOJ really proves that what we had feared was true. Had they won this election, they were going to spend the next year truly going after anybody and everybody to the fullest extent that they possibly could to try to finish off and put the nail in the coffin of the most MAGA Trump supporters that they could.
Yeah, you talked about that before the show, that they do have just a little bit more time until they can no longer prosecute y'all anymore. So once that time is elapsed, then even if we were to have a radical left regime, God forbid, come in the future, will they won't be able to prosecute anybody anymore?
So for most of these crimes, crimes that were committed on January 6th, I have a statute of limitations of 5 years, so a year from January. And so I really believe that we got to remember, right before the campaign really ramped up, they were still arresting people. A lot of people don't realize that. They were still arresting January 6th political prisoners 3 years after January 6th. 3.5 years later, they were still, and for being at the Capitol, for praying at the Capitol. I mean, we're not talking about anything major here. And so I believe that they really slowed it down as they were gearing up in the election cycle. So because they knew it wasn't very favorable among the American people, and because they knew they had a year left to go. And so if Harris would have won, they'd really be ramping it up right now and trying to get everybody that they possibly could.
Yeah. Wow. Well, I just want to say thank you. I know that you had a choice in this. And especially, I think that some folks, when they see, remember with General Flynn, when they said they were going to put, his son Michael Jr. in jail. I mean, that messes with you as a parent. And once you saw what happened to your family when they arrested you, I'm sure you thought, oh, dear God, what more could they do? And I just want to say thank you for standing up, because you weren't just standing up for you and your own children, but you're standing up for, all of America, but really for those who follow, for our children and our grandchildren, because, like you said, we are the last leg standing. And if we don't fight for this freedom that others were tortured and killed for, our grandchildren aren't even going to know what it was like for us to live in a free nation. And so you had a choice. And I just want to say thanks for joining me today. But thank you so much for doing the right thing, the hard thing, and fighting to keep America free.
No, thank you so much. All glory to God, for giving me the strength and the courage to withstand, what he called me to go through. And he's with us every step of the way. And, I'm just so thankful and happy that we reelected President Trump, and so many people who have went through all what I went through, or even in some ways, even worse, some of the people who were at the Capitol on January 6th and never received that knock on the door. You got to think they've seen what's happened to others. They go to bed every single night, want to know if the next day is going to be, the next morning is when they're going to get that door knocked down. Those people can now lay their head down and go to sleep in peace, knowing that we've saved this country at least for the next 4 years.
Absolutely. Derrick Evans, thank you so much. Tell us real quickly how folks can follow you, connect with you, and hear you on your podcast.
I'm on True Social at Derrick Evans. I'm on Twitter, at Derrick Evans, I think 4WV. I mean, we've all been banned from so many social media sites now. We got different things. But, I'm on Getter, True Social, and Twitter are the main ones that I'm active on. So you can find me there.
Oh, that's great. Well, Derrick Evans, thank you so much for joining me today on the Moms on a Mission podcast. It was such a joy to get to speak to you.
The pleasure's mine. Thank you.
What an amazing discussion that was. What an honor it was to meet Derrick Evans. And I don't know about you, but I am so inspired by him. He just encourages us to stand up and speak up. I mean, no matter what you think about January 6th, no matter what you learned about it, whether it was from the mainstream media and that narrative they're wanting to spoon feed us, or whether you really talk to people who are on the ground and you learn the facts from that day, the bottom line is that we saw what happened with BLM and how they were let out when they did so much more and so many more egregious things. And then we see what they did to these J6ers. And I'm just so inspired by Derrick and his choice to stand for freedom, to speak out, and not to let fear govern you. I mean, just being in solitary confinement, can you imagine what that would be like. I can't even imagine that. And I'm just so thrilled that he's continuing to speak out and stand up and to teach us how to do the same, because let's be honest, courage is contagious. And when we hear from people like Derrick Evans and we see how after everything he's been through, I mean, can you imagine as a parent seeing your 5-year-old in the window like that? And yet he is still going around and speaking out and encouraging us to do the same. And now with President-elect Donald Trump going to be in office January 20th. What an opportunity it is for us to continue to speak and speak even louder. So I really hope that you all will follow him, that you'll follow Moms on a Mission on Rumble as well. And you share these broadcasts, because it's really important that folks hear the truth and they hear from people who are actually at events and they know factual information. So share this broadcast with your friends and family, and then follow Derrick and follow Moms on a Mission so that you can learn whatever new information we have to share with you, and we can really protect ourselves from the narrative from the radical left. So thank you all so much for joining. And please do not forget about DrStellaMD, her COVID Light and COVID Vites. I have to tell you, I was exposed to something a few weeks ago and I lost my voice and I was battling, and I took the COVID Light. In fact, one day I took it twice and my voice came back, and I was taking the COVID Vites, and it is so powerful. We're entering into fall and winter, and you know how viruses work in the wintertime. And so I just encourage you, go to DrStellaMD and use the code MISSION. You'll get 5% off, and you're going to be helping your body protect your kids. I make my son take the COVID Vites. He doesn't do the powder thing, but he takes those COVID Vites every single day and protect you and your family through the season. You can't speak out and stand up when you're sick and you don't feel well, right? So protect yourself, protect your family today. And when you're doing that and you're protecting your family and you're supporting your family in that way, you're also supporting the Moms on a Mission podcast. I know I didn't know much about podcasts before I started one, and it turns out it's not free. Surprise. So when you are investing in your family and supporting them, you're also investing in the Moms on a Mission podcast and supporting us as well. And for that, we are so incredibly grateful. Thank you all so much for listening today, and God bless. Hey everybody, did you know that recent research from the CDC says that millions of Americans develop parasitic infections and symptoms often go unnoticed or are misdiagnosed? Parasites are actually the cause of many health problems such as anxiety, depression, chronic pain, fatigue, and unexplained digestive issues. We all need a common sense strategy to improve our health. Moms on a Mission encourages you to reach out to our good friend, Dr. Jason Dean. Dr. Dean's Full Moon Protocol provides all natural detoxification and fights inflammation. And the supplements are made with 100% organic ingredients and are proven to kill parasites safely and effectively. I know after I took Full Moon Protocol, I had more energy. To order your Full Moon Protocol today, go to bravetv.store/mission to save $20 off your first order. That's bravetv.store/mission. According to leading sleep experts and sleephealth.org, over 50 million Americans struggle getting a good night's rest. That's why Moms on a Mission loves MyPillow. MyPillow makes amazing pillows, sheets, mattress toppers, robes, towels, literally almost everything you need for a good night's sleep. They also make dog beds for your dogs. So by going to mypillow.com, typing in the code MISSION, you not only receive a high quality product, but you're supporting Moms on a Mission and this podcast. If you like what you're hearing and you agree with it, you believe in it, and you want to support Moms on a Mission, then go to mypillow.com today and order some high quality products and just type in the code MISSION at checkout and you can save up to 66% off. That's mypillow.com, code MISSION.
Since 2014, Organic Body Essentials has offered clean, simple, certified organic skincare. Our organic face-to-feet and federally compliant hemp and pet products are manufactured under USDA and FDA guidelines. Our products are inspired by God using plants He created. In Ezekiel 47:12, it says, "The fruit is for food and the leaves for healing." We believe in the power of God to heal, so we pray over our products and for our customers. Our therapy in a bottle approach has been widely received, and our customers' testimonials continue to inspire us. You can find us at organicbodyessentials.com and obe.organicbodyessentials.com. Please feel welcome to reach out with questions. Use coupon code MISSION at checkout for a discount. Thank you for your support by using Mission at checkout to benefit moms on a mission and their quest to reestablish traditional values in our education system and empowerment for a healthy lifestyle.